Hello, good morning. Let me know how the audio sound. We are on. I should sound good. I'm trying to get back in the groove of doing these lives. But we are on day 374 of the occupation, and to me, it's not just a normal day. To me, it's not. It's definitely not Columbus Day, but today is the anniversary of the murder of Logan Bell. It has been 9 years since this 18-year-old boy was murdered. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna be reading from the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force pamphlet, the section that covers Logan Bell, and also another article that just recently came to be. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot. Sounds good? Okay, thank you. It's been 9 years. Okay. So this is a section that we got right here for Logan Bell. The date of the incident, October 11th, 2012. It's been 9 years to the day. 9 years to the day. Officers involved are Philip Statler and Jeremiah Cesarli, and would end up being Andre Brass as well. And okay. And the shooting of him, the murder of him, was ruled justified. This is a synopsis that was taken from an online PDF without credit to author. Logan Bell, age 18, was a sweet and caring young man who suffered from a social disorder. Toxicology reports reveal he hadn't taken medication prescribed for bipolar symptoms. His grandmother called the police, explaining that Logan had a handgun, a pellet pistol, and feared he was a danger to himself. So I think really we can just stop right there and think about that first sentence and think about what do that mean to us? What do that mean in the world, really? That this young man who was struggling through and had mental health issues and was needed help at this time. Somebody was calling for help. Somebody was calling because they were scared for his life, because they were scared that he might somehow hurt himself. And while this should be noted that this person who called explained the circumstances, explained that Logan Bell needed help and was seeking help, trying to get help, and explained that the gun that he had was a pellet pistol, a BB gun. It was a BB gun. Rockford Police Department Sergeant Andre Brass and two officers, Philip Statler and Jeremiah Cesarli, found Logan in a field near Pilgrim Baptist, waving the Crossman. That must be the type of BB gun it was. Crossman C11. They ordered him to put it down. And this is what the type of things that we need to be careful discussing. The type of things that we need to really just fully think about these issues when they come up. Now we have a situation to where really they don't say this in this article, but after the police had been called, Logan Bell left the house that he was in. He left the house because he did not want to interact with the police, because he was this neurodiverse man didn't want to have no interaction with the police. So he left, and they chased him down into this field. They chased him to this spot. So now we're in a place, and the circumstances are, it's no witnesses around. It's no witnesses around at all. Nobody to see these three officers and how they interact with this 18-year-old whose family member called for help, whose family member called because they were scared for him. Not because any crime was committed, not because this was some dangerous person to anybody else, or there was some type of thing else they need to be worried about. This is just a young man whose grandmother called the police because she was scared for him. She was scared for him, and they chased this young man out into the field to where nobody else could see. And they knew that he was a neurodiverse young man. They knew that this gun that he had was a BB gun. So when the only account of this version, the only account that we got for this is from the police officers. It's from the people that killed them. Allegedly, they say they told him to put it down. And this is where we get into some type of things to where they say police officers are the ones that said this. Police officers are the ones that put this story out. They say that Logan Bell shouted, "Shoot me, shoot me. You're going to have to shoot me. I'm not going to drop the gun." And again, they knew it was a BB gun. And allegedly, Logan Bell would fire the BB gun in the direction of Andre Brass, who was uninjured. The BB gun didn't even hit him, and he tripped while he was retreating. That's what they called it. So what happened next, supposedly, after this young man whose grandmother called the police for help, whose grandmother was scared for his life and thought that he might somehow hurt himself, after they chased him out into this field, after they have some type of interaction with him, ordering him, demanding him to drop the gun, to which they know is a BB gun. They know about the circumstances with him. And it's an allegation. It's no proof that Logan Bell fired this gun. It's no proof. It's no proof that Logan Bell fired the direction and of Andre Brass. It's no proof of that. It's just a word of these officers, the word of his murderers that we have to take into account. That's the only people around for this. So it is only alleged that Andre Brass had a BB gun fired in his direction. But after this BB gun was supposedly fired, Philip Stotler and Jeremiah Cizerli would shoot Logan Bell 16 times. 16 times they would shoot this 18-year-old kid. This 18-year-old kid who needed help. This 18-year-old kid who grandmother called the police because she was scared for him. She was scared that he might hurt himself. Tenworth run through explained Winnebago County Coroner Sue. 3 in the head. The fatal shots through the heart and lung. Three in the head and the fatal shots to the heart and lung. 18 years old. 18 years old. And what we would hear from being out here and being in this occupation, one thing that has happened is that a lot of things that were previously unknown, a lot of things that were previously unknown have came to light. A lot of witnesses or family members have came up, and they've been able to share their story and share their side of things and share things that wasn't reported in the news, that wasn't reported in any type of fashion. So one thing that we had heard, and I truly believe and I fully believe, that they shot him almost a dozen times, and that they walked over him as he's laying on the ground after he has already been shot almost a dozen times. They walked over his body and shot him again. To this 18-year-old boy who they knew needed help. This 18-year-old boy who they knew wasn't no danger to anybody. Okay, let me get back to reading this. Standing in the field alongside former Alderman Victory Bell Lloyd Johnson, president of the Rockford NAACP, and Oliver Emerson, a Pilgrim Baptist deacon, the Reverend Kenneth Board, said police should have done more to talk Logan Bell down. Mental illness should be handled with concern and compassion, he read. As we see it, the only thing criminal here is a response. Rockford Police Chief Chet Epperson said, "Our hearts go out to the Bell family." The officers did the best they could in a split-second situation. In our line of work, we do not have the option of choosing when and where we will become involved in deadly force. The Winnebago County Integrity Task Force investigated the incident. The Winnebago County State's Attorney, to determine whether the use of force was justified. My fault, I think it might be a typo. Illinois State Police Lieutenant Kurt Kavanaugh, who led the Integrity Task Force, determined the officers' actions to be justified. "Our hearts do go out to them," he said. "It is very unfortunate that this had to happen." It had to happen. Think about how they have characterized this thing. Think about how they have characterized the murder of this young man, the execution of this young man. Oh, it's just something that had to happen. That police officers, well, we don't get to pick and choose when we use deadly force. You're telling me when you send 3 police officers to a scene where they are knowing that a young man needs help, and they chase him down into a field knowing he has a BB gun, and they shoot him 16 times. You tell me that's not a choice? You tell me throughout the whole entire time, through chasing him through that field, through standing over his body and firing again, you're telling me they did not have a choice. That's the story they're trying to put out there. Then I believe, let me read this article first. And this is an article that will come out shortly after the shooting. I just found this one. This is a title, it's a headline. 3 Rockford officers on leave after fatal shooting. Rockford. A shooting involving 3 Rockford police officers Thursday left 1 man dead near South Central Avenue in Cypress Terrace. The name of the victim and the officers involved were not released. Chief Chet Epperson said a family member of the victim called police about 2 p.m. concerned about the welfare of the 18-year-old. A welfare check. Police were also informed by the family member that he was possibly armed. And this is go to the type of how do I want to say this? The type of misinformation and the disinformation that they'll try to spew out there. The full report showed that when the family member had called the police, that they told them it was a BB gun. They told them it was a non-lethal gun. They went to that scene knowing damn well that that gun couldn't kill nobody. Police found a man matching the description given by the caller, and the man reportedly ran from the officers, who pursued him, who chased him down. Epperson did not say whether Epperson did not say whether the victim displayed a weapon, fired a weapon, or how many times the officer shot the victim. And I guarantee this is why I think this sounds fishy, and this is why I don't believe that Logan Bell ever fired in the direction of Andre Brass, because I really believe if Logan Bell had fired about them, then they would run rampant with that story. That story will be everywhere that he fired this BB gun in the direction of Andre Brass. But this is a story that was released almost immediately in the aftermath. So what I believe is they had to take the time to get their story right. They had to take their time to make sure that everybody on the same page. What's going on? What do we want to have happen in this situation? I fully believe that The allegation that Logan Bell shot in the direction of Andre Brass with a BB gun is a fabrication. Okay. Then a woman who was 78 at the time, an 18-year-old resident of the area, heard about 10 shots while inside her residence. And this is a quote from her. I said, "Oh my God, what is happening here?" My nephew called me and said, "Don't go outside. Police cars are everywhere." Epperson said the officers have been placed on administrative leave, paid administrative leave, as is procedure. He also said the investigation was turned over to the Winnebago County Integrity Task Force, which is headed by the Illinois State Police Lieutenant Kurt Cavanaugh. Cavanaugh declined to address any specifics about the case, such as an account of events leading up to the shooting, the victim's race, or where on the body he was shot. However, Lloyd Johnson, president of the local NAACP chapter, said he was contacted by Epperson, as has become protocol when an officer-involved shooting involves a minority. The protocol was established after the Mark Anthony Barmore shooting in 2009. Barmore, 23, who was unarmed and ran from police, was fatally shot in the lower level of a church daycare. No longer can we and this is a quote from Lloyd Johnson, who was, again, the president of the NAACP in Rockford. No longer can we have a wall put up between the community of concerned citizens and law enforcement. Is that it? Give me one more second. After speaking to police, Johnson spoke to members of the victim's family. He said he wants to wait until the task force completes its investigation before passing judgment on the officer's actions. Law enforcement is trained to engage members of the community who have mental health challenges, he said. We don't know what measures could have been taken to prevent this. So it's two things I'd like to point out there. One measure that could be taken to prevent this is to not have the police there in any type of way. Not have the police that respond to the scene of a young man going through mental health struggles. I can't think of a reason why a police officer, armed police officers trained to kill, armed police officers who use some type of force on a daily basis, I can't think of a reason why they need to respond to this scene for this young man. And something that has happened since then is this so-called mental health task force, to where I forget the exact name of it, but I have seen it. I've seen it in play. I've seen it in works now. The main thing that, and what it is, I should explain it. What it is some type of people that work from Rosecrans, the social workers, or what exactly their job title is, but they'll come down and they'll be surrounded by 3, 4, 5 police officers. So really it don't make no difference. All I really feel like it is, seeing it in practice, it's these workers go up and they try to engage in the person, and then they go back and talk to the police. So I've seen this be ineffective. I don't think that a police officer can ever adequately respond to any mental health crisis. I don't think they should ever respond to any mental health crisis, because that is immediately putting that person in danger. Just like Logan Bell. If it was a situation to where a unarmed, a licensed therapist, licensed social worker were to respond to this scene, I believe that Logan Bell would have been celebrating his 27th birthday today. Or not today, 27th birthday this year. If it wasn't 3 armed police officers and it was a social worker and somebody who was invested and cared for his life and took into account that this was a young man that needed help, I believe that Logan Bell is still alive today. But because it was 3 armed police officers who responded to the scene, he was murdered at 18 years old. 18 years old. 18 years old. Would have been 27 this year. And this was, now looking at this from 9 years later, Andre Brass, he was a sergeant at the time of the shooting. He would end up being promoted, I believe, either the next year or the year after. The next year or the year after the shooting, to be assistant deputy chief, in charge of District 1, I believe. And Philip Sattler would retire. He's in good standing. He get his full pension. He getting health care benefits. Andre Brass has retired now, and Jeremiah Cesarli is still working. Jeremiah Cesarli was a member of the Scope team for a period of time, and was also involved in multiple arrests during City Market last year and this year as well. Somebody who shot this 18-year-old 16 times working City Market. Somebody who shot this 18-year-old got a promotion and retired in good standing. Murdered this 18-year-old boy in cold blood. Stood over his body and shot him when all he needed was help. He's still patrolling the streets today. And this is just a small example of what has happened on a larger sense, my fault, a larger sense for decades. These situations to where I read about one case and one scenario where it was a man that was having a seizure, and the police officer responded to the scene, and as this man was seizing, he's just so happened to hit a police officer. As he was having a seizure, he just so happened to hit a police officer, and the police officer he hit will punch him back and beat him back. Because that's what they know to do, and that's what they are trained to do. Whatever bullshit mental health training that they go through, it's just that. It's bullshit. We have a case in situations to where Jay Hanley is up there saying that he's not concerned about whether or not police officers follow procedure or follow policy. What he's concerned about is the event, the actual shooting. And the shooting, what we have seen in the past 30, 40 years is justified. So it don't matter any type of bullshit mental health training. These police officers are trained to use force, trained to use deadly force, trained to shoot to kill. And that's exactly what they did when they responded to this mental health crisis. That's exactly what they did when they responded and went to this welfare check. 9 years ago. Nine years ago. So the main thing, my fault. I'm trying to make sure I got everything. Okay, my fault. Okay, here's the article that was written after Logan Bell's name was released. Three Rockford police officers have been put on administrative leave per department procedure. Let me talk about that. Per department procedure. This says changed, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. Maybe I should try to find out what it is. But if he was a cop in the 90s, if you was to shoot somebody, if you was to kill somebody, all you would do, all that would happen to you was you get paid 3-day leave. Paid 3-day leave, then you get to go back to work. And what has happened recently, if there's any type of investigation into you as a police officer, we've seen multiple police officers be arrested for battery, be arrested for sexual assault, be arrested for child porn. This new one that got arrested for child porn. And they're getting paid administrative leave. They get to sit at home for weeks, for months, until the so-called investigation gets ruled justified, and they get to go back to work. No problems at all. Sitting at home making paychecks while this 18-year-old boy, while the family of this 18-year-old boy is trying to recover from their loss. They're sitting at home getting free paychecks. Sitting at home. Officers responded to a call from a family member of the eventual victim, 18-year-old Logan Thomas Bell. At about 2 p.m., October 11th, the family member said they were concerned about the welfare of the 18-year-old, who they believe may have been armed. And again, that is blatantly not true. Not true. They told them on that phone call that it was a BB gun. Logan Thomas Bell was a relative of former Rockford Alderman Victory Bell. Victory Bell said Logan Thomas Bell was his cousin's grandson. Police located the man matching the description, and Logan Thomas Bell reportedly ran from officers. Rockford police officers then pursued him. Rockford Police Chief Chet Epperson has not disclosed whether the victim had a weapon at all. Residents in the area reported hearing as many as 10 gunshots. Epperson has contacted the president of the local NAACP chapter, which is standard when an officer-involved shooting involves a minority. Nine years ago to the day. And this is why I think it's important to cover this. It's important to discuss these victims and these people who have been murdered by the police or died in the Winnebago County Jail. It's important to bring them up because it's important to realize and to recognize how each one of these circumstances, each one of these deaths, each one of these murders affects you directly or indirectly. And because they do affect all of us. They do. My fault. My 16 shots. 16 shots. They do affect all of us. Whether that's being a related or a friend or have went to school with Logan Bell, or if that's seeing these same circumstances and seeing these same cases happen time and time again, year after year after year, and nothing be done about it, nothing be changed about it. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up for now. Might have a little vigil here later on, maybe light some candles or something for Logan Bell. Rest in power, Logan Bell. Subscribe to the newsletter. The newsletter will be out a little bit later on today. Subscribe to the podcast. Rest in power, Logan Bell.